cycle. We had the government shut down. There were 8 senators that voted with the Republicans. One of them was John Fetterman. We had him on our show on Tuesday because his book came out called Unfettered. And so he's making the media rounds now, talking about his book and having these interviews with individuals. ᗷᖇEᗩKIටිG, she interviewed him and she pressed and she pressed. She was trying to get John Fetterman to agree with her that Donald Trump is anti-democratic. He didn't take the bait. Watch.
When you consider some of Donald Trump's behaviors and policies, like deploying federal forces to U.S. cities, undermining the Department of Justice's independence, attempting to overturn the 2020 election, does that not trouble you deeply?
Well, of course. I was really the tip of the spear in the 2020 election in Pennsylvania. But I think at this point right now, we are not in an autocracy. You know, we're in a democracy, and that's why they were able to shut our government down.
Do you think that Donald Trump is not conducting himself or not pushing policies, though, that you would consider to be? Oh, I'm talking about Donald Trump's, some of the things that he's doing.
If you believe we live in an autocracy, and I don't. And I think we can both agree that we don't agree with the vast majority of those things that's happened here right now. And I wouldn't do those things. We happen to have a different view of these things. You know, it's like I don't call people fascists or Nazis or compare people to Hitler. And I think that's part of why we lost our election last year.
By the way, ᗷᖇEᗩKIටිG has revealed herself to be an ultra left-winger, and that's somebody who represented the #1 morning show for about, what, 15, 20 years? Mm-hmm. So that's fine, but people looked at her as an arbiter, I guess an equal arbiter for a while. I remember her interview with Bush 41 in the White House. And I'm not saying she's not great at her job, but what she was trying to do is just basically say, agree with me. Instead of asking Fetterman, what do you think? She's like, agree with me that he's terrible. And he's trying to say, no, that's his policies. I disagree. And our system's playing out. Do you think that President Trump is happy of National Guard in Chicago and Seattle? No, but that's called a democracy. Judges push back on certain policies. They support other policies. I think the whole thing's working. You just don't like what he's proposing. You don't like the way he's president.
And in autocracy, you'd have a dictator. You'd have someone that would come in and say, no, this is what's happening.
Well, she is, I mean, here's ᗷᗇEᗩKIටිG, sort of, we haven't seen her in years. She like resurfaces and she is completely all in on this narrative about President Trump. And the federal immigration law enforcement is a great point. There's no more glaring example of actually enforcing laws that exist on our books. President Trump is doing it. Right. Some cities are welcoming it, like Memphis. Others are pushing back, like Chicago. But I thought in ᗷᗇEᗩKIටිG's, I guess, effort to reemerge and feel relevant
in the most violent public way, we have to turn the temperature down. Extreme rhetoric makes it easier for extreme reactions or to justify them.
I think some people might say Charlie Kirk's rhetoric was extreme. You know, I think that's the conversation that happened. People condemned political violence, but they also felt a great deal of discomfort with his language, suggesting that these kinds of words lead to violence. I don't know. I'm just kind of sharing my observations as I saw the conversations unfold.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we agree that we probably didn't agree with much of what he said. And I think I'm sure we both agree that you shouldn't shoot people, you know, and you shouldn't execute them in public. And I think that's two things must be true. That free speech, I'm an absolute free speech guy, and you have the right to say these things. And you
sometimes seem like an extremist, and some of his views changed anyway. Mm-hmm. But their algorithm will just give you the negative things on Charlie Kirk, especially if she's on TikTok.
Yeah.
If you just look at Charlie Kirk in the raw, just watch a speech of his, see some exchange in his. Don't even wait for Turning Point to cut you a highlight reel. You will feel, I don't think she would have made the statement she made.
He was an advocate for free speech, and not everyone agreed with him on every single point. Mm-hmm. Some people agreed, some people didn't. But that's what was so fascinating about Charlie Kirk. He would open the lines of communication. He wanted to debate you. He wanted to tell you his side, but he also wanted to hear your side. And he was willing to put himself in harm's way and ultimately get killed for free speech, for being an advocate of free speech. Sorry, Griff, but she did say, do you think the flag should have been flown at half-staff? Do you think his body should have been flown on Air Force Two? Do you think he should have posthumously been given the Medal of Freedom, Award?
Mm-hmm. You know, I think that one thing that I always come back to, Andrew Colvett, Charlie's producer that we've had on this show and on Fox News a lot, he constantly talks about the algorithm you're mentioning, Brian, about, you know, you can see all of the contentious moments of Charlie Kirk, but Colvett says that 90% of all of his interactions debating issues in a peaceful manner is really what Charlie was like, and that's never out there, the peaceful discussion. And I think what's really interesting about this Katie Couric interview is, why wasn't any of Fetterman's answers good enough for Katie Couric? Like, she wasn't listening to Fetterman. She just kept diving, pushing harder and harder.
The other thing is, she's like, why are they putting national troops into states, into these different cities? Well, they're not troops, number one. There's National Guard. Down 35%. Do you know robberies are down 41%? Carjackings are down 50%?
Since the troops?
Since they went in there. Because the cops are now free to do the other things, while the forces that Trump is paying for went ahead and scooped up a lot of illegal aliens and cracked down in other areas and gang members. So maybe the results matter. Maybe they would ask yourself, Katie, why were they needed in the first place? Because the cities weren't taking control of their own people.
So it's working, cities are safer, and people are still complaining.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhardt. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.